Just say come check in the chats, right?
Just second one.
Yes.
In chat.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, welcome to another episode of the Pepper Soup Talk Show, where we bring to the table movers and shakers in the African diaspora. My name is Aki. It's my partner Toby, and a special guest today is someone who has experienced extraordinary success in the stock market, trading stocks and options during the pandemic. He's also an artist. He's an illustrator, an animator. His work has been recognized by some of the biggest music artists in the game, from Chance the Rapper to Tierra Whack, Lil Nas X, and others. And beyond that, he's someone who not only has found success for himself in the market, but has also been a positive influence on a lot of people who are looking to get into trading and guiding them on their journey. And so we're very excited to speak with him today and hear about his journey and hear about a lot of the great work he's done and how he has managed to take $250 and transform that to over six figures in trading. So Taylor, welcome to Pepper Soup Talk.
Hey, thank you for having me. Thank you. How's everybody doing?
Good. So are you up in New Rochelle?
Yeah, I live in New Rochelle. Yep.
Yeah, because when you mentioned that, New Rochelle's actually my hometown. So.
Oh wow.
So shout out to New Rochelle. But getting right into things. We know again, like you've had a lot of success trading in the market, especially during the pandemic. Can you talk to us about how you got into trading, like when you started, and kind of like what your entry point was into? Like, how did you get into it?
Yeah, most def. So I'd always been interested in like business and the economy, at least within college. It wasn't what I studied in college. In undergrad, I studied technology, but I'd sort of always had this, affinity for the market or for the economy, And so as it came to the stock market, my very first exposure in terms of, let's say, investing was when Snapchat initially IPO'd and went public, And so that was interesting because it was something that I could relate to in terms of, using Snapchat, as a kid, and actually, feeling like there was an opportunity to something that I can relate to, you know what I mean? And so that was the very first time I bought a stock. It's one of the first lessons I ever had in terms of buying stocks when they IPO, because it fell right after, and it's a bit discouraging. And I think what happens with people's experience in the stock market is that it's the part where you can lose money, especially if your very first experience is losing money. And that was mine, And so I hadn't really been trading around that time. It was just like, okay, well, I did that and I don't really have that much money to do much else. So let's see where this goes, The unique opportunity, at least last year, was, of course, when the pandemic started and the stock market crashed, And so in the way that I got involved there was sort of, again, carrying that interest that I had before and being able to see what was happening in the world around me, and knowing that the stock market was falling. I sort of knew that intuitively, And the way that I then sort of was able to act on it was I had been following Todd Capital for a while on Twitter, and he had posted a tweet on Twitter, learn how to make money on stocks when they go down, and I never knew you could do that, you know, and that sort of caught my eye like very strongly, because it was like, I knew the world was shutting down. I knew we were going to go into quarantine. I knew that businesses were going to shut down. They were going to be able to make money, and the stock market was going to crash as a result. And if I could make money off of that, okay, then I'm sold. You know what I mean? And so after buying his course and learning about options and again, the ability to make money on stocks falling. My very first trade was buying a put on Delta Airlines and Uber, knowing that the airline industry was going to be shutting down because you couldn't fly anywhere, then no customers are losing money. And as the stock fell, I made about $200 in my very first day, And so I was like, well, that was the easiest money I had ever made in my life, And since then, I had just been hooked. I was just like, well, if that was that easy, and not to say that trading is easy, because it's absolutely not, but at least I made money off of a decision I made on my own, my own intuition, and that was fulfilling in itself. And I wanted more of that, and I really just. The interest was there before, but now it's like, okay, now I really want to learn how to do this completely.
It's dope that you had that insight, that kind of as the market was going down, they're able to, capitalize off of that. And you mentioned the put, so which means you're trading options. But were you introduced to options before the crash, or like was that something that you started doing? Because a lot of people know about the stock market, about stocks and how you can trade and invest in individual shares, but not as many people know about options trading and how powerful that can be. Can you speak a little bit on that?
Right. So I did not really know about options before, let's say February or March of last year. I had seen the word being thrown around a lot, like options and options trading. I thought it was just, buying and selling of stock, just regular stock, I mean? I didn't realize that it was something that was like an added component onto it, And so in terms of when I scrolled by the tweet of how to make stocks or money on stocks going down, that was the moment where I was like, okay, this is different from what I knew about the stock market. And being able to play options on stocks going down, and then eventually learning about, and of course they work as well when stocks go up. But that was the moment in terms of when I bought his course and went through his video workshop and learned that there was this other side of the stock market that I had never been exposed to. That really gave me the knowledge, or at least the jump start into actually understanding what options trading is.
So for everyone tuned in right now, just to talk a little bit about options, because again, most people know about stocks, but when it comes to options, options are contracts that are basically give you the right to buy or sell stocks at a certain price, and you can trade them similarly to the way you would trade stocks. So when they go up in value, when those contracts go up in value, you can sell them and make money on the spread, and then the same thing when they go down. And so when it comes to options, like you mentioned, Todd Capital, and it's such a powerful community. So let's talk a little about Todd Capital. He has a large options community. Taylor is an admin of, and so he has an options course, and And the way we actually got tuned into you, Taylor, was through the Top Capital's Slack channel, community channel, because we noticed that you be posting these like very comprehensive, like it's like analyses of what was going on in the market from day to day, and what was going on in the economy, and entries into trades, and exits from trades. And there was just something about like you specifically where I was like, this guy is very consistent and really seems to have a system in place. Can you talk a little bit about, how, because it's mentioned like you started trading options in, February, March. Like, can you talk a little about like how you put your system in place, and how you kind of developed as an options trader?
Right. So it was definitely like, there's like so many parts I would say that are involved there. You know what I mean? I think that the first thing I'll say is I was definitely an open-minded sponge, and because of, again, from the excitement of that first day of making $200 my first day by doing nothing, and wanting to really like learn more and do the research and put in the time to actually understand like what was going on, that definitely required like a lot of work and time on my part. And so initially when we started in the community, most of us were also just learning how to trade options, and so we were sort of helping each other, right? We didn't really have that much of a mentor. We all had bits and pieces about what we know in options trading. And I'll say right here that there's no limit to how much you can learn about trading and the stock market and such. But in the beginning, it was like we're learning from each other. Anything we were missing, we had to either look it up or try to ask someone else who may also not know. And so that was a bit of a challenge in the beginning. A lot of people teach options in different ways. So if there was something I learned from Charles's course, that maybe there were parts that that I wasn't fully comprehending, and I went to go search maybe that part that I wasn't fully comprehending and finding it on YouTube, that would sort of be a challenge in itself as well, because then someone else is teaching it in a different way, using math and algorithms and like accelerated language that I wasn't able to grasp, And so it was definitely like super confusing in the beginning, And so I really had to do a lot of work in terms of reading, YouTube University, just watching YouTube channels. There's a YouTuber named The Trading Fraternity, and I think his name is Josh Answers. And I used to watch him like every day and just watch his videos because he was very entertaining. And he was very committed, I would say, to sort of like teaching about like, options in itself. Some other resources I used, I wasn't just in the TC options community. I was also just going out of my way to search for different other trading discords, see what other people are doing. Is there anything different that they're doing? Is there any more information I can get from them? And slowly but surely, the pieces started to connect, because a lot of the jargon with options, at least when people sort of, in terms of when they try to teach it, they go from like A to Z, like really quickly, and it's sort of, where does the sort of, let's say 5-year-old mind come in and trying to teach this to a child, even though children aren't able to trade, but it's like, how do you even break these concepts down for someone to understand without involving numbers and math that, most people may not get, or may convolute the actual logic behind it, because people just get lost behind all of the technicalities and everything, And again, it was just really difficult to just gather all this information and put it together. There were a lot of frustrating times, I would say, especially when the moments where something, or you feel in your heart you're confident in maybe some type of trade that's going to going to happen, but you run into an obstacle or a blockade for why you don't understand your option contract is doing this, that, and the other. And if you don't get the answer immediately, you're just like, well, I'm stuck. How am I going to get out of this hole? I'm stuck. I'm missing out on all the money making opportunities that are right in front of me, and that can get very frustrating. And so I guess part of my goal now is to sort of take some of those experiences where I just had to really just dig and dig and dig and try to figure this out, from like hundreds of sources of information, and really trying to consolidate it into one. But I would say that the main takeaways I would say was definitely asking questions. I'm someone myself who has always been shy in terms of like most of my life, right? And feeling I could do things by myself. But really being able to ask other people questions, being able to see what they're doing, and constant self-assessment and reviewing of what I'm doing. Those were like the main takeaways that really like kept me pushing forward.
Yeah, can you quickly highlight, so you did say it's a bit of a struggle, but
Yeah.
how do you feel the amount of work you put in terms of research hours differs from, the beginning versus now? Do you think you're still putting in the same amount of effort, or, the same or less amount of effort to get the results you're getting right now?
Right. That's a really good question. I would say there was more work definitely in the beginning, in terms of the hours I put in. Now that I sort of understand like um, all of the technicalities, let's say, of options trading itself, I at least have that part out of the way. And most of the research I do now is just for, let's say, technical analysis and research on companies themselves. I would say what I'm doing now was, and the amount of work I put into it now was combined with trying to train myself into the actual fundamentals of options trading, and getting over those hurdles that I had gotten over, because those hurdles would take like days to get past sometimes, because I would have this issue and it felt like Googling it wasn't going to get me the simple answer I needed. And it felt like it was such a simple answer all the time. And eventually it was, but trying to find the person who was going to give that to me it was an issue, or just trying to figure out what the central thing that was missing was. So then back then I was um, definitely putting like several hours in a day of studying, from I would say like March until June. I was also working my full-time job at the time as well. So it was like that's sort of in the picture too, and trying to manage my time in between those. Um, but I would definitely say that the hustle, right, or the grind and the drive, the excitement to really make this like a future, and seeing the potential of what it could be for me was absolutely there in the beginning, and that just really what was sort of driving me forward, just like, oh, no, I'm gonna get this, because I see how powerful it is. It's just I just have to keep continuing, even if I'm missing opportunities, even if I'm losing money in some ways or along the way, right? Um, that was just like the motivation, definitely.
So can you quantify, like, some people, you only
Right.
see highlights of your results, but they
Yeah.
don't know how much work you put behind the scenes. So if
Right.
it's like a number between, like, let me say, hours per week,
Yeah.
in business now, so people can know it's actually like more to it than the success that's highlighted for
Right.
most investors.
I would say I think I could give per day. I would say at least like 3 to 4 hours a day. I was putting in, and um, so what's that? I guess like like 20 hours a week or so. And also overtime, if there was something I didn't understand and was just late at night, like 1 a.m., just Googling, trying to find the answer so that I don't miss out on what happens the next day, you know. Nowadays, I would say about like 1 to 2 hours a day I do, you know. Um, Definitely not as crazy as it was before. And I want to sort of give a realistic overview of like what there was that I needed to learn, right? Because it wasn't just options, right? Um, I had to not just only learn like the ins and out of options trading and some of the ways that in terms of the mechanics of it all, right? I had to learn about what the economy was doing. I had to learn who Jerome Powell is, you know, the role that the Federal Reserve takes place. I had to learn how Trump affected the market, you know, in terms of everything he said. Um, I had to learn to adjust to COVID, just like the entire world had to, and how the market was going to react to those developments that were happening, especially in the beginning when no one knew what was going on. There was no vaccine, there was no research, there was all of these factors, you know. And then on top of that, technical analysis, reading charts, all of that. Like it really, it wasn't just options, you know. It was just the whole package of literally understanding what the world is doing, the whole economy, society, personalities of the people involved, you know. And that's sort of a lot, you know. And I'm grateful for it though, because it gave me a good worldview, of just things happening around us, things happening in other countries. You know, it really expands your horizon, I would say. Um, but it definitely did necessitate a lot of work and a lot of those hours that I did put in to get there and understand all of it.
Oh, just one thing. Can you highlight? So you mentioned there was a few hurdles you had to overcome. Can you just give like one or two examples and why is it such a big thing to solve that first before you move on to the next opportunity?
Right, right. So I would say the main hurdle that people run into with options, and to give sort of a short breakdown for anyone who doesn't know, like there's call options and there's put options. And so a call, you buy a call when you anticipate the stock to go up, and you buy a put when you anticipate the stock to go down. And so there were times where I would buy call options, uh, namely ones that expire within a few days. And the stock, I would, you know, let's say I buy a call and I'd watch the stock go up, but the call would not make any money. There would be no profits. It would continue to lose money. And that didn't make sense, right? I thought when you buy a call, the and the stock goes up, you make money. And then the you have to sort of turn around and say, and someone tells you, oh, well, there's more to it. Well, okay. What more is there to it, you know? And then you sort of get into the Greeks of options, like you know, not to get too complicated, like theta, time decay, all these other things that are involved in options contracts, where it's not just simplified, where up and down. You know, there's this whole all these mechanics behind it. Another one, another hurdle was I would say earnings. Let's say when a company reported their earnings, um, it's that's part of the conversation as well with the up and down, and it's just not as simple as that. Uh, you would buy an option and hold it through a company's earnings report, and the stock would fly up, shoot up, and you bought the call, and you're like, oh, I made money. But there's a catch to that. You know, there's a volatility crush, and someone else had to teach me volatility crush. I had to figure that out from another, like a different Discord group, because I had been confident. And it's funny when you start to learn maybe something and you feel like, and your excitement sort of overcomes you start to feel like you're a bit overzealous. You know, it's like, oh, well, I know how to do this. I can make money. You know, I know what I'm doing. Where sometimes you're not willing to get that extra information. And even though I was very, again, ambitious in terms of like my research and learning, there were times where it's like, I feel like I know that already, you know, but when someone tells you there's a catch, you're like, well, what are you talking about? And so someone told me there was a catch with swinging through earnings, and I had to learn the hard way when I did that, when I would swing through earnings and lose a great deal of money, you know. And interestingly enough, that first time I learned was GameStop in May. And we know that GameStop did this whole other thing recently. But that very first time I did it made me hate GameStop stock.
How was that for you when the whole GameStop scenario happened and saw like the short squeeze and
Right.
were you in the mix? Yeah.
Right. Initially I wasn't. I was kind of I wouldn't say late to the game, but I was just not a believer, because it was just like, why is this happening? It was, and I would say everyone sort of sees that situation as some of the craziest things they've ever seen happen in the market, you know. And
We're going to just so everyone who's tuned in is
right.
can you talk a little bit about what happened with GameStop and why the stock rose so high a couple weeks ago?
Right. And so would you want me sort of explain sort of the situation that happened, or just partly my role in it?
It's a situation that happened, and then like
Right.
whether you got into the
Right. I think I can connect the two as well. I would say this, right? I thought GameStop was a failing company for many years, and maybe it is, you know, but obviously it had this hype recently. But I did not like GameStop. I had all these negative feelings towards them. They had been losing money, or at least their stock had been falling for several years. They had not been innovating. There were these other sort of competitors in the market, namely Amazon, that was taking a lot of their market share of the buying and selling of games. So they weren't, you know, they had some issues, right? And so because of that, that sort of created a bias within myself that this was a failing company. I couldn't understand why this would go up, you know. A few months ago, they had a change in management. They had a change in CEO, I believe. They also had a change in board members. The former president of Nintendo had become a board member at GameStop. So there became this initial excitement of, okay, maybe they're going to turn things around a little bit, right? Then on top of that, there became the theory where, like me, a lot of other people thought GameStop was a failing company and wanted to short the company, and by shorting, they anticipated the stock to go down and they make money off the stock going down. And so there were many people who were shorting the company for that reason, and that was effectively keeping GameStop super low at super low prices, right? A few Redditors on the, or, you know, members of the website Reddit and on the subreddit Wall Street Bets, they came up with that idea in terms of acknowledging the amount of short interest in the stock that, and that eventually, like, if they really boost the stock up and just continuously buy and make the stock price go up, a lot of those people who were shorting the company, those hedge funds and institutional traders, they would start losing money as the stock's going up, because they're only making money the more the stock goes down. So as it's going up, they're losing millions, billions of dollars, you know. And the only way to avoid or cover some of the losses that they're making is if they then go, those hedge funds go to the other side, and instead of shorting, now they start buying up the company so that they hedge their losses. So with so much buying, that just created this whirlwind of sorts, you know, where it just made the price skyrocket. And as it became more viral, more people knew about it, it just became this whole public scene. And so much buying, so much buying. And GameStop last year was around $3, and it went to as high as $500. You know, the first time I had sort of caught wind of this, let's say my position in it, when it went from one day, I think last month, it went from $20 to $40 in one day. And I saw on Wall Street Bets, some people made they turned $500 into $50,000 or so in a day, you know? And I was a bit upset because I was just like, this company sucks. So how is this happening? And how did I miss this, you know? And then so that makes me start re-questioning some of my own thinking about the logic of the market and the things that are happening. Because I'm trying to be open-minded. It's just like, this shouldn't be happening, but it is. And let's start to figure this out, you know? So the first time I missed it. The second time it went from like $40 to $70 or so. I missed that as well, because I'm just like, how is this still going up? You know? And because it's not based on what I know, I'm just scared if I get in, that's the moment that it's all gonna come downhill for me, you know? And then finally, like the third time that I think from like 70 to 100 or so dollars, I got in. I was just like, well, like everyone's getting in, now it's time. And I made maybe as high as like $2,000, nothing crazy as the person who made like $45 million, like definitely not. But it was just, it was insane, like admittedly, you know. And then so many other stocks that had similar structures to GameStop in terms of the short interest, they were all reacting as well. And that's when I felt the opportunity to sort of like, okay, I miss GameStop, but I'm not gonna miss these others, you know. And so I hopped into stocks like BlackBerry and Nokia, especially. And Nokia was insane, just for the audience, because Nokia allowed me to have my very first $100,000 day in the market, you know, and
$100,000 in a day.
in a day.
Yeah.
And that was on January 27th. That was a few weeks ago. And I just wish every day could be like that.
I'll tell you what, you're never going to forget that day.
Right. Yeah. The craziest day, like absolutely. But it just shows how, you know, the market just can be so rewarding, you know, and, you know.
Before we go on, I just want to thank everyone who's currently tuned in to Pepper Soup Talk. We're here with Taylor Hamilton, stock market trader extraordinaire. Made $100,000 in a day. If you like what you see and are hearing, please subscribe and like the video below. And if you're on social media, please take a screenshot of this video, post it on your social media so that others can tune in. But Taylor, something that is pretty clear, as you know, he was just explaining the GameStop scenario, is there's a lot of risk involved in the stock market in general, but especially when it comes to options too. And there's a statistic that 98% of people who put the money into the market end up losing it all. And so can you talk about what it takes to be a part of that 2%, which you've become a part of, where you know you've not only been able to make money, but like really continue growing that money over time. It's not just that you know you got lucky a couple of times and that's it. Like you really have really have learned this skill.
Right. Absolutely. I would say the very first thing is patience, right? That it sounds simple and it feels easy to say, but frankly, not a lot of people tend to have that, and you really do need to have patience, not only with the stock market and your portfolio, but yourself, you know. Um, I would say that the market is, and or learning how to trade or being on an investing journey, whatever it is, it's that journey is not just in the market and your performance and how good you're doing. It's also a journey within yourself, and I mean that significantly, because the market taught me to have patience for myself. Being candid, I'm someone who has patience, let's say, for other people and trying to help other people. But personally, there were a lot of times where, and I'm sure everyone's been through this, where you have goals, we all have dreams, and when we try to fulfill those dreams and it doesn't work out, you can beat up on yourself really bad, especially when it doesn't happen in as soon as you want. Everyone wants to be, let's say, a movie star, celebrity, rapper, and they want it to happen overnight, and when it doesn't, you can be hard on yourself. And that's definitely something I do all the time, and so, and I had some of those feelings in the beginning, as I mentioned earlier, some of those hurdles and those obstacles that were in the road were those moments where you second guess yourself. You question it. Is like I'm not gonna get this, or like, oh, like what am I missing within myself? Is there some level of character flaw for why I'm not understanding, this roadblock? You have those questions, you can have those self-doubts, especially when money is involved, money that you may not want to lose, and so learning what I was in the market for, and giving myself the space and patience to be able to mess up, knowing that there was, let's say, greatness on the other side, somewhere down the road, that was a motivational factor, So patience, I would definitely say, first and foremost, right? Risk management. And to add on to the patience part, right? You have to know, let's say, not even just in the market, but as anything you put yourself into, right? But especially in the market, with how much money you're putting in and what you're actually risking. I feel like you have to set those realistic expectations for yourselves, or for yourself, in when it comes to the market and what you're doing. Because I can say that I had $100,000 day about 2 weeks ago, right? And that sounds attractive, and that gives people motivation to join. And I firmly want to encourage people to sort of explore this for that reason, But you have to set realistic expectations for yourself. It wasn't just overnight that I was able to do that. That was a culmination of all of the work I had to put in, all of the emotional turmoil that had to happen sometimes, where I had big losses that felt like that shouldn't have happened, that maybe I didn't want to take. And not to say that big losses is part of everyone's journey, but some type of loss is going to be part of the game, and you can't become a millionaire overnight. You can see GameStop, you can see all the stuff running up, but that's just not how this regularly works, and unfortunately a lot of people lost a lot of money trying to chase that whole GameStop thing, because the expectations just weren't realistic. They weren't set realistically. Maybe if someone else told them, that person, to go chase GameStop and buy in, and now they're crushed and they lost all this money, and that's unfortunate, but you have to manage your risk. You have to understand how much you're putting into something, how much you're willing to lose. You have to understand the ways to go about managing whether not even managing just loss, managing wins. You can't be too greedy, right? You're in the market, you start making money and you're like, oh, I think it's going to keep going up, and then you lose it, and then the moment you sell is always in a loss because you panic, and you panic because you didn't have patience, you know. So all this stuff starts to tie together, you know. And to just like, I would say most importantly, in terms of, and I'll just say this personally, what kept me going, right, is the motivation about what I knew this could become for myself, right? What are my personal goals in my life, right? I want to retire my mom. I want to pay off her student loans. I was able to pay off mine. But I want to now pay off hers, right? I want to create generational wealth, right? I want to create group economics. I want to build community centers in my old neighborhood, right? And those are my goals that I sort of hold with high regard and firmly believe in. You know, I want to uplift my people, and if no one else is going to help us, you know, and any loss that I took along the way was just nothing compared to how firmly I believed in that, you know, and that really drove me to just keep going no matter what, you know, even in the times where just let's say you take a loss and you feel stupid, you feel misguided. It's just like, well, this is just part of the plan, you know. And I believe that so strongly that anything that I was missing or anything I needed to learn, I was going to get that and do that as much as possible, you know. And so that's probably the best or the most important part to your question that I would say, because that sort of overcomes everything, because most people are just in it for the money, you know. And initially I was just in it for the money too, but it became bigger than that. And that's what made me stay, you know.
Definitely want to get to the social impact aspect of what you're doing and the why that drives you. Before we get to that, what you got any?
Yeah. So real quick, so we've highlighted the success, of your journey in, trading in the market. As you know, and a lot of people who trade from experience is a very emotional thing,
Yeah.
like you just highlighted. Can you highlight, for example, some of the losses? Because, part of, trading is losing money and then kind of getting over how much you lost and
Right. Yeah.
setting up and tripling up. So, if you stop at, one of your major losses, you will never have had the 100K day,
Right.
So,
Exactly.
seeing that vision is what kept you in it. And yeah, just highlight those and how you're able to overcome it and, get to where you are now.
Right. Absolutely. I would say my main biggest loss, or first biggest loss, was in June, around the time of Juneteenth, and I felt like I upset my ancestors there at the moment. But let's say the end of May to the first week of June, that was my very first biggest win. My account had gone from about $3,500 to $5,000 to then $60,000 within that week. And that was the most money I'd ever made, like, in my life, at that quick, you know, more than the full-time job I was working, you know. And it was just like, those are some of the first feelings where I could do this all day, you know. And so, as I mentioned earlier in the call, that a little bit, you get a bit overzealous. You make money so fast. Sometimes it's hard because we're, as humans, we're emotional beings. It's natural for us to sometimes feel greedy, or sometimes just get too far ahead of ourselves, you know. And so I had made $60,000 like super fast. The market was going crazy, and I just thought it would keep going, you know. And then sometime, like, I think the week before Juneteenth, the market after going up so high, it just like really like it didn't crash, but it corrected itself. It pulled back very significantly while I was still holding a lot of trades and we're still in many call positions. And so in that moment, I went from like 60,000 to like 30,000. You know, I lost $30,000. You know, and initially I was fine. I was like, oh, I'll go back up. But then I started making dumb decisions because in that moment, I had made $60,000. I'm now at 30. I want to get back to 60. You know, like now, like I made that. And so you start forcing trades, you start trying to just get back there as soon as possible because you just lost so much money so fast. You start to feel like an idiot. It's like, oh my, like how could I lose that much money, you know, after having it? You know, you start to question yourself, like, and that's part of the personal journey. It's like I had $60,000 and I let it get away from me. You know, to be blunt, right? Am I stupid? You know, am I like what am I doing? And that's the question that you ask yourself. Like, what am I doing? What am I really doing? And it's definitely it was definitely the emotions were there. You know, the main thing that I had to prioritize was my mentality. If anyone doesn't know, I'll insert this as well. The name that I go by, Kiakili, it means of the mind in Swahili. So I chose that name because I think emotional intelligence is maybe the greatest lesson that I learned in life, and that I always work harder towards. And in those moments where I feel like I've failed or that something went wrong, it's always about maintaining that emotional intelligence, maintaining that mental fortitude to push onwards and just keep going in life, you know. And so when those losses happened, you know, there were some moments of like depression or sadness and feeling as if I'm not as great as I thought I was in the market, you know. And it's humbling, you know. And sometimes you have to humble yourself. If those events in life are going to humble you, some people will still have their ego even when things may try to humble them, but you have to self-reflect in that moment. You know, I was being a bit too risky. You know, I was swinging my whole portfolio, having majority of my whole portfolio in trades that I was exposing myself to so much risk that I put myself in a position to lose that much money, right? Though the market went left, but I can't just blame the market. I have to take accountability for that, you know? And I had to re-strategize, you know, before, and I'll add this, right? I went from 5,000 to 6,000, or, you know, 5,000 to $60,000 within a week, right? I wasn't adjusting my strategy for my current my current tax bracket in a way, you know what I mean? My current amount of money I had. So because and people say this all the time, right? I have so much money, I don't know what to do with it. That I didn't know what to do with all this, you know what I mean? And I lost it because I didn't know, you know. And so then that tells me I have to start adjusting and creating a strategy so I can maintain consistency. Because while I was consistent, um, that could have just been like a glitch in my journey, right? Just making so much money shoot up, and that wasn't part of, because consistency is a steady line, right? A steady line to the upside. But if you're just like treading and then it spikes up, just like the market, it might have to come back and correct itself, so that you get a broader understanding of what's going on. You know what I mean? So I wasn't putting as much money into trades as I was before. I was taking profit much earlier. I was taking a loss earlier. Just trying my best to not expose myself to as much risk as I was before. You know, there was still a good amount of risk that was needed to get back to that prior point. And I would say at times, and maybe partially my age and having a full-time job at the time allowed me to take some more risk because I had some level of income to fall back on. And so I'll sort of throw that in there just before people. There's not everyone has the privilege of being able to have that much risk given their situation, you know. But you have to assess what's going on in your life, in your journey. What is your plan and your mission in the market? Do you have a strategy? Do you even have a plan? Are you reevaluating your strategy while the market is constantly changing, while the world around us is constantly changing? Everything that you may have worked in the past may not work now. And you have to humble yourself and give patience for yourself to learn and unlearn some of the things you knew so that you can get to the next step.
Thanks for sharing that story with us, and also for being vulnerable about some of the situations that you've gone through during the journey thus far. You touched upon mental health and emotional intelligence, and during those times, like for instance, the Juneteenth week, where you had lost 30,000, or any of the times where you might have been very down, or feeling a little depressed, like how did you gather the gumption, or how did you kind of stay, how did you kind of like rebound from that? How were you able to dig deep within yourself to rebound from that to keep going on the journey?
Right. The first thing, of course, was the sort of the motivational goals and mission that I had mentioned earlier in terms of like forgiving my mom's student loans and trying to do the generational wealth, economic building in the community. That was definitely, again, a main factor that at least helped my mental state in those times where I had a lot of self-doubt. But I would say that the community and a lot of the folks I just communicated with and collaborated with in these two communities, they gave a lot of what's the word? I would say we have in those moments that typically a lot of people lost money, right? We lost money together, and it if you feel better when it's not just you, because even though you have to self-evaluate, at least it's better than just feeling alone, or that, again, it's something intrinsically wrong with you, and sometimes it's hard to figure out what it is, if you're lacking something, or if it just is something else. I mean, sometimes it's hard to find the balance between what the things you should take accountability for and what is maybe just sort of the nature of the journey. And so being on the journey with other people who are doing the same thing and trading together, it comes it's a team effort. We're all trying to get to that finish line, and in the moments where we lose money together, as we describe it, getting clapped, we get clapped together. We joke, we joke about it, we laugh, and it helps you get through it. You don't get stuck just inside of your head all the time. You don't start having self-destructive thoughts. You don't start feeling like, oh, I'm terrible, even though that might happen. But at least if there's something to alleviate that, then that's much better. We tell jokes. Oh, I just lost 5,000. I can't. I'm going back to flipping burgers or something. Like that, I mean, or somewhat, like I said, like how ready I was to, like at the time of making $60,000, like, oh, I'm ready to do this full time. I'm gonna quit my job, and then you lose $30,000, and I'm holding to my job real tight, you know. And so it's community, having people to talk to, having people to ask questions, because we've all been there. Everyone's been there. It's not just you, you know. That is so crucial, I would say, in trading. In a way, at this point, I feel like I don't know how you would be able to do this without like a community or someone to help you, you know, because collaboration is like so key, especially like, let's say traders who we're up against. We're up against hedge funds and institutional traders, the ones who actually move the market, and they're trying to make money off of us. How do you even fight against that, right? You have to unify. You have to collaborate, come to understanding. Even when in loss, you have to work greater towards the bigger win. You know, so anyone watching, if you are like sort of considering trading, like absolutely have a community. Never feel afraid to ask questions. Never feel like whatever's happening to you is only happening to you. And always know that the market does not control you, right? And your life does not depend on what happens in the market, right? I feel like it can improve your life. And I try to emphasize in some of my stock market workshops that I do, and in my book, I try to emphasize that do not let the market define you. It can use it as a tool to get to wherever it is you want to be, right? But it does not define you, because the moment that you think it is, then when you lose money, you feel like your world's gonna crash down on you, because you consider that part of your entire world. And it just sucks to lose money. I mean, it just sucks. I mean, everyone, you can't deny that, right? But again, set realistic expectations for yourself, and do as such in the market that if something goes wrong, that you can get back to your normal life, or and take a break to then get back to the market, or just do whatever it is you need to make you happy, you know, because you have to have your own life, you know. But if this is something that can be used as a tool to improve your life, or to provide for your family, to use as a source of income, like utilize it, and just understand that it's just a journey where not everything is going to be perfect. You're not going to win all the time. Set those realistic expectations for yourself and have patience.
Cool. So I believe I read that you donate a portion of your profit, or a portion of your profit goes towards certain community projects.
Yes.
Can you touch upon that?
Yes. So the community bail fund, absolutely. So as it relates to the market, and let's say cannabis, right, and being able to invest in cannabis, as we know, let's say on this call, right, that the system has always been against us, specifically Black people, in terms of policing and criminalization, incarceration, you know. And there's, especially as we're entering this new world and transitioning into a world that accepts cannabis, not only for medical use, but also recreational use, that in terms of all of the setbacks that have been caused, you know, upon Black folks, especially in America, as it relates to possession of cannabis, and how many lives have been ruined with nonsensical sentences to those people, that that as the world is starting to accept this, but the justice system is still not decriminalizing it like federally, and all of the people who got indicted on it are not free. That there needs to be a point at which we take control of the conversation and the situation, when no one else is willing to do that for us, you know. And so as it relates to being able to invest in cannabis in the market. All of my wins on cannabis stocks, and especially this past week, cannabis has done a big boom, and it's probably going to continue somewhere down the line as having a Biden presidency and majority Senate and all of that, where 50% of all of my profits from trading cannabis stocks are going to the community bail fund and other funds like it. And those funds, what they're dedicated towards is to use the money to bail out nonviolent offenders. And it's not strictly just for cannabis, but there are ones I can't think of like right now that are exclusively for nonviolent drug-related offenses, and just trying to bring another life home, because I think, again, we deserve for as much sort of pain and has been inflicted upon us for something that has been so simple like cannabis, that we need to take control of that narrative, and we deserve reparations in regard to that. Unfortunately, no one's looking to give that to us, so it's like now we have to go and claim it for ourselves. And so a big motivation in terms of trading and being able to make money, and I say this sort of like all the time, where it's like where it hasn't been about the money for me, it's about the market is giving me an opportunity to give opportunities to others, because unfortunately the world runs on money, and at least right now we can't, there's just ways about which we have to act because of the powers that be, and the market allowed me, it enabled me to be in a position to really change other people's lives, and so when I make a great trade on the cannabis, I make all this money, my first thought isn't I'm rich, right? It's not, oh, I'm rich. I don't even feel rich, by the way. I don't feel rich, even if I had $100,000 a day, whatever. I don't feel that way, But the first thing that I think when I make a trade is someone's about to be free, right? Someone's about to see their family after being locked away for a long time. I think about someone who's on the street asking people for money, scrapping for food. They're gonna have a home. I think about all the kids in my old neighborhood, Wyandanch, New York, that some of the schooling system there isn't the best. I'm gonna be able to provide the resources to them some way or someday down the line. And so that's where that restorative justice part that comes in terms of the opportunity that's prepared here. And I know not everyone sort of may think of it that way. I know a lot of people. I've realized as sort of I get certain messages. A lot of people have like a really strict taboo of the market and thinking it's inherently evil, and maybe it is. I don't know. Everyone has opinions, but it's what I'm using it for, right? And what I would encourage other people to use it for is we're not getting to the finish line of freedom and justice by ourselves, and it's going to take a long time to get there. But if there's an opportunity that enables at least changing somebody else's life, then take it. Do what you can, and that's what I feel like I'm doing what I can with what I have, and I'm very grateful, really grateful to be doing that, and that this is an opportunity.
So, we commend you for your spirit, and how are you using the opportunity that you've been given to give others the opportunity.
One thing I noticed with your, at least some of your trades I've seen, your timing is kind of impeccable. So one of the things about options, there's an entry point and exit point. Fundamental analysis does move the market also, but being able to implement it systematically and well, executed does show, in the results of the portfolio. Just now when you were just talking about cannabis, I remember maybe a couple months or so ago, you highlighted that some legislation was being passed about cannabis or something like that. So you picked up the newspaper, you put in a couple options, and how long between getting that fundamental analysis of that news and placing that trade that leads to the benefits or the profits that you saw?
Right. So yeah. So would you want me to answer maybe in general or just, let's say, with that cannabis example?
And let's start with let's start in general, and then cannabis can be like
Right.
example of.
Right. So I can say that fundamental analysis is like you're using your own intuition. You know what I mean? One thing that someone that sort of sticks with me, that someone said that sticks with me is you know more about the market than you think you do, and because what the market is just it's a reflection of the world around us and businesses and what they're doing as it relates to the society and economic or social political situation that's happening around us. So everything around us in the world is sort of effectively involved in the market some way, and so if you're able to watch the news, read the newspaper, go on Twitter, whatever, or go outside, buy McDonald's, go to the mall, whatever you do in life, it's like, and you sort of have an understanding about why, or what's good and what isn't. Let's say good news or bad news, and how something is doing, how something isn't. Like you're already ahead of the game. Like you already know that about something. You already know that Netflix is really popular. Everyone's using Netflix. You love Netflix because you watch all of your favorite movies on it. So your intuition already is there. The moment you take after that is unfortunately with trading, let's say options specifically, you have to know about technical analysis. You can go without technical analysis and make money, but for only so long, that where you really do have to pay attention to a chart, because even though you might see something that's good, it might not immediately reflect for that stock price, and I that's what I had to learn as I started on options last year, that you see something good or bad happen and the stock doesn't do anything, and it's just like, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, effectively, some things aren't really going to feel like they make sense initially all the time, you know what I mean? But you do have to, after knowing your own intuition, you do have to look at the actual chart of the stock or any sector that you're looking into. You can do more research into that company or that sector. And if we take cannabis as an example, you can go and do research about all of the current bills and laws that are trying to be effectively passed. We were able to see that federal decriminalization of cannabis was in place, right? You can do you can go on, let's say, cnbc.com or even Google, right? Just look at everything cannabis related, what's happening, what states are legalized currently, what states are looking to be legalized in the future. How are the financials and the profits of these companies even doing, And if the speculation and the companies themselves are looking good, then okay, then consider it a trade. Consider it that this has potential, right? You can then next, if you're actually going to buy stock or options, you then assess your risk in terms of how is this going to go. The most minimal of risk involving in cannabis at the time of November when I initially mentioned it, because Biden had won the presidency. The minimal risk was just buying shares of cannabis, like buying actual stock, because you actually own the stock. In options, if anyone doesn't know, you don't own any stock when you trade options. You're just owning the contract of options, even though they're more profitable. And if you want to look at then the first risk is like just buying shares and anticipating it to go up, and understanding the risk in terms of how much money you put in. The next risk you would take would be to understand or try to take a trade on options, or like let's say a call option that would expire not for like a year or much longer than that. So for the people that I had been talking to about cannabis, I recommended for them to buy year out expiration, so that they had time for the sector to actually grow, for the speculation and all of the news that was surrounding those companies to really start building up, and so that there was time to capture that growth and the adoption of all of these practices with cannabis. You know what I mean? Because just like you're not going to become a millionaire overnight, all of this lovely stuff that we talk about, whether it's just your favorite company or cannabis or whatever, it takes time for it to actually, let's say, become normalized and hit the public. You know, all this news and everything things are doing, it all sounds good, but we then have to really see it. As I just described, in the market, it's what you can see, or we see all these things happening around us in the world, and that's when we fully make sense of it. And in trading stocks and options, it takes some time for it to actually like fully become visible in public and make sense to the rest of the world, you know. But it definitely does take, after that fundamental analysis, it does take a little bit more research. It does take looking at the chart and understanding maybe some of the indicators that you might use and the data you might use to trade on charts. And that's definitely a bit of a hurdle to get over, because that takes some time to learn too in terms of technical analysis. That overall, that would be my answer. Additionally, I would just add, for people, as I'm mentioning technical analysis, I just want to say it's possible. It looks like the most complicated thing out there, all like looking at charts and candles, and you go on YouTube and you see people talking about this and patterns, and it just looks like rocket science. I felt like I was never going to learn it, and then I did, after some practice and after asking questions, you know. And now my goal and what I've been able to accomplish is I personally, in the way that I trade, I host a live trading call where I share my screen and we're basically trading together. And so people see my screen and they ask questions. If I see a certain pattern, if I, does that make sense? I have a question on something and I'm not really sure. Can you sort of give your input, and then I'll answer, right? And so I've been able to teach over 200 people. From them just watching me and ask questions, they now understands how to read charts, and it's second nature to them. And all they do is just watch. And if they didn't watch, all they would have to do is put at least 10 minutes every night into looking at a chart and trying to make sense of it. Only 10 minutes a night and just looking at charts. And eventually, over the course of like weeks and experience, it starts to make sense, you know?
So you touched upon a lot.
Yeah.
The technical analysis, fundamental analysis, the big picture, current events, understanding the data, and you've really taken this next step into helping others and educating others on getting into the market or guiding them on the market. So you got your trading room. I know you also have some ebooks that you've written.
Right.
Can you talk about what inspired you to create those ebooks? And for those of you who are on here, definitely go check out Taylor's ebooks. They're really good. And Toby and I have actually both read them. So both of us have read it. So it's super dope. Yeah, can you talk about what inspired it?
Right. Um, so yeah, as I sort of alluded to earlier this call in terms of that grind, that 20 hours a week grind, and not having, the amount of information out there about options and trying to make sense of all of it and how confusing it was for me, that was the main sort of source of inspiration for me. Because by the time that I realized that that options in the stock market was bigger than me, that's when I knew that, and I felt it like that. I want everyone else to figure this out too. Before I sort of get into the full answer, I thought that teaching, I never thought I would ever do it. In like school, everyone talks about, oh, I want to be this when I grow up, and I want to be this. And every time someone would say, I want to be a teacher when I grow up, I was this, no, all love to all the teachers watching. It was like, why would you want to be a teacher? Because I just knew that kids suck. Like, why would you want to have to deal with that, especially us being kids at the time. But that's just how I was thinking, like 13, 14 years old, But over the past year, as I realized that the stock market wasn't just about making money for myself and something bigger, that eventually I just grew into the role of a teacher naturally. And that was very like enlightening, I would say, because it felt like throughout my whole life, I'd been dodging something that it felt like I was being guided towards. I just naturally leaned into it, something I thought I was never capable of doing. And then all I want to do is help other people and help everyone, And so that motivation definitely came through for the book. Again, a lot of people teach options very differently. The way that they teach options is typically from a mechanical sense, from a sense of how all the algorithms of how options are, what an option comprises of, what all these other terms like the break-even price. And if you even watch any of these sort of like basic videos on YouTube, they just get into so much of like graphs like complicated jargon, that it's so understandable why when people start, they're so lost, and if we're going to make this more accessible, and if so many people are entering the market, especially with the GameStop thing, more people than ever are learning about the stock market right now. There's so many people that it's like, oh, you're talking about the stock market now? And it's just because you never expect it, it's just, it feels so different. It just felt like it was, and that's what it was. The stock market was something that was thought to be reserved for the wealthiest of the wealthy, and that you need a lot of money to get started. And you needed to understand all this craziness to be a participant. And effectively, that's just untrue. And I'm here to destroy that myth. I'm here to eliminate the taboo of the market. And I want to bring everyone to where I am, in terms of being a trader, all of those months of research and work I had to put in, and I'm grateful for the grind I did to get to that level. But all the blockades that were so frustrating for me, I just want to make it easier. I want to make it easier for someone else. I want people to understand it, to understand the logic first. You have to understand the logic first before you get to all this complicated technical jargon, you know. Like, what does it even mean? Some people look at options, they don't even like know like what they're looking at, what everything means, like how to even make money. A lot of people don't even know. You know, they might see screenshots of people making money, but they don't even know how to get started. You know, so my book, the Options Trading Starter Guide, I put a lot of passion into that book. Everything I literally just said, that's what went into the book. I'm, as sort of you introduced me on the call before, an investor and trader, I am an artist at heart. You know, I'm a creative, and I put that into the book, right? I put my own illustrations. I made custom made animations for the book. I made it sort of pretty and interactive so that it wasn't just you're reading like a black and white book where people are throwing words at you. You know, it's straight to the point. It's um it's visually appealing, visually intuitive, and it has several hours of video where I sort of walk through everything I know, you know, and all of the basics in terms of the stock market, trading options, technical analysis. I try to give as much information as I can, and I'm continuously updating it. So anyone who like purchases the book, like all of the new content that I add is free of charge, you know. And so it's all about making it as accessible as possible so people can just truly understand it and not fall into the pitfalls that I did and that frustrated me, so that they can start on their journey and their destiny, and we all come together towards this unified mission, whether it's wealth building, community economics, whatever it is, you know.
You know, what was definitely most prevalent in the book was how you integrated the animation and illustrations into it. That's something that really differentiates it from, you know, a lot of other educational resources that may be out there. And it's powerful how, you know, you integrated these two very different skill sets into one. And yeah, that's really powerful. We've started to move into the tail end of this. So we got
Yeah, just I guess two things to highlight. I think one of the things I appreciate about your book was the YouTube clips you also put in the ebook. You talk about X, Y, and Z, and then you run through it manually, like, oh, this is what I meant when I referred to this, that, and the third. You know, a couple years ago, you can't find none of that information on YouTube. So that was like, you know, a new level for understanding. So the second thing also is one thing that you helped me with was how to, I guess, not minimize risk or trade, but how to not feel it as much. So you're saying whenever you place a trade, put the same amount or the same number of contracts, whatever option that you're doing. So for, I know a lot of traders, or at least not a lot, at least for me in particular, I like to see, oh, if I put this much on this, how that do, but that blows up and just other one tanks and stuff like that. So it's hard to balance that also while trading. So yeah, I really appreciate a lot of the knowledge we're able to share with the community inside your ebooks.
Most definitely.
now for people who want to get started with options, as you mentioned, you know, oftentimes you see on social media people posting their profits and whatnot. A lot of people don't know how to get started. What are, let's say, 3 steps someone could take today if they wanted to, you know, they're watching this interview, and say, you know, I want to get into this. What are 3 steps we could take to get into?
Right. I it feels weird to say this just because I'm not a salesman, I'm not a businessman, but I do think my book really, and let's say I do have a bundle right now where it has an intro to the stock market, hour-and-a-half long workshop where I walk through just all of the basics of the stock market. And then it's a bundle with that and the options trading starter guide. So like I do have that as a resource to where you can like instantly get started and really like understand all of the logic and basics to actually understand at least the world around us and the stock market itself. You know, I don't know. It just feels weird, just yeah, sort of plugging that in. But I do feel that I tried my best to make sure that's like the greatest starting point and greatest way of explanation for people to enter. But on top of that, in terms of doing your own research, it's like YouTube, the Trading Fraternity, excellent channel for explaining things on options and trading. Um, I would say if you trading platforms. Normally, I would recommend Robinhood, but recently we've run into some issues. But anything that is, in terms of simple platforms to trade, Robinhood is one of them. Just do some research about Robinhood. Webull is another great one. Both are apps that you can download on your phone and start like funding your account and like navigating for any stocks you want to that may interest you. If you don't want to do trading, I would highly suggest Stash as an app. I use Stash for my long-term investing. So I in terms of any stock I want to buy, I go and use Stash. It also has a feature where you can schedule your investments. So you can set it so that every Thursday you invest $10 into Apple or something like that. You know what I mean? And so I do that, and it disciplines me to regularly invest my money, and save my money. I feel like that's how I save. I don't really have that much in savings that sort of just stashed away. A lot of it gets reinvested so that the money just continuously grows, and it disciplines me to save because it automatically takes the money out of my bank account, and so Stash is really great to get started there. And I would say thereafter, I would say download Twitter if you don't have it, and follow some good traders. Unfortunately, I probably won't be able to say everyone like right now on this podcast, but there's like numerous like experienced traders that you can find out there. I would say Atlas, the Atlas Trading Group has many sort of quality traders who have like strong followings and who have made a lot of people money. They're way more famous than like other sort of people that I know. But eventually, again, because you want to build this world for yourself, you want to surround yourself with the people who know what they're talking about, and surround yourself with the resources that are going to get you to that level of understanding. Because you can learn. Let's say you go and purchase, my book, or you go to learn on YouTube. Those are resources, right? And you can learn something, but what's learning without like application, or learning without the actual world building? It's like learning a language, right? You can learn like certain words in a language, but you don't really know the language until you go out and speak to someone else about it. You don't know the language until you go to Spain. Like, let's say Spanish, you don't know Spanish until you go to Spain. You start trying to talk to other people and start to hear what they have to say. And sometimes what they have to say, you don't understand. But at least since you're in that environment, that's going to fuel and build that understanding of the world around you, or that setting. And that setting here is the stock market, And so with surrounding yourself with experienced traders, with news resources like CNBC, Seeking Alpha, Twitter is just such an important resource there, as well as if you had like definitely try to, if you are interested in trading, definitely try to join a community. It doesn't have to be our community. It can be just any other trading group, whether it's a Discord group or Slack or whatever, where people are going to, where you have a resource to ask questions, because there are times where people will get stuck. And that's just part of the learning, journey. It's no different than um, going through K through 12 in school, right? There were many things you didn't understand when you were like a first grader, but eventually it just builds upon itself, and those blockades that of things you didn't understand, eventually you had to get over them, and you had to get over them to graduate. So whenever you hit an obstacle, you hit a roadblock, something you might understand, you ask questions, you try to learn more about it, and after you get over it, you're getting closer to your end goal. So overall, that's all the resources I would say in terms of after this call, if you want to get started, like take those steps.
Well, thanks for sharing those tips and those resources. I know it felt like it was a shameless plug with the book, but I do want to vouch for the book. It was incredible. You will enjoy it if you check it out. And we will be posting a link to the book after this as well. If you want to check it out too. I want to thank everyone who has been tuned in throughout this whole time. It's been a lot of really great feedback on the interview. I see a lot of goat signs. Kelly, this is the goat right here. Thanks for the guidance. Yeah, man. I just want to say you're making a really positive impact in the community. I really commend you for that. We're honored to have you on the show. And before we let you go, do you have any parting words for people out there who are looking to get into trading?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say first thing I would say is like right now is a difficult time for everyone in the world, or a lot of people. It's a lot of stuff has happened in the past year, and a lot of things has been hard to manage for many. And maybe you're in the position now to try to work towards changing your destiny for yourself. Um, and there might be some aspects of the world that are working against you, whether it's you may not like your job, or maybe you're in school and things are hard in school, or you're just suffering some type of hardship, or maybe things are fine and you want to just learn something new that's going to add to your tool set. That I definitely encourage everyone to just really like follow your heart, and to really uh, take like this interview and take like these words as meaningful, that you are the master of your own destiny. And I think that just from personal experience, and just in terms of the past year, and just how much has been against us, and I'll say like to Black people, how much is against us, and how much it feels like no one's going to help us, or it feels like no one's going to help you, that there are opportunities where you can help yourself, or someone will help you, and whether it's us here on the call, or it's someone else down the line that you might have like ran into, or why you're even sort of thinking about trading options or being in the stock market. Something led you here, and something led you here to listen to us just discuss all of these things, and I think that's meaningful. And so you have to take everything that let's say God has given you, and to try to take the opportunity to make something out of it, and because all we can do is do what we can, so I'll leave it with that.
Just one quick thing. Recognize your flag back there. You're from Barbados. Is that right?
Yeah.
Where born and raised?
No, I was born here, but my mother's side of the family is from Barbados. So definitely hold it dear to my heart, being a Bayesian.
Gotcha. And then one part of things we usually say is, second, if you can help me out if I'm saying this wrong. We usually ask, what do you usually do for fun besides, going to investments or anything like that? What do you like to do for your free time?
I like to draw, of course, as an artist. I play video games. I got this PS5 here, luckily, I guess. Um, and I guess I'm also like into watching anime as well. I sort of have this like Dragon Ball Z poster right next to me. I think we've all grown up with like DBZ or something around us, but all of that like creative side and a little geeky side of me, that's always been me, so that's sort of what I do for fun.
Well, thank you for everyone for tuning into Pepper Soup Talk. We are here bi-weekly on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Thank you, Taylor. Taylor Hamilton, stock trader, entrepreneur, illustrator, animator, man of many talents. We commend you for all the work you've been doing, and we're excited to see you continue to grow and all the work you're going to continue doing. Taylor, where can people find you if you want to tune into what you got going on?
Right. So you can follow me on Instagram at Kia Keely, and that's KIAKILI. And on Twitter, it's the same. It's Kia Keely X. So Instagram and Twitter, Kia Keely. So that's where you can find me.
And then I noticed too, someone in the comments asked if you could say your website.
Oh, yes. So it's also kiakili.co. So yeah, kiakili.co.
Cool. And then for everyone tuned in, we'd love for you to keep being a part of Pepper Soup Talk. You can follow One Jollof at One Jollof on all social media. That's Instagram, mostly Twitter, Facebook, onejollof.co. That's CO. Again, we're here bi-weekly on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Taylor, thank you. And look forward to continuing to see you, see the great work that you do.
Thank you. I appreciate it.